Boom.
Welcome to the Compliance Network podcast, your compliance community. Since 2014, we've been helping financial services companies understand and follow the rules that govern the industry. Whether you're nearby or across the globe, we're here for you. Let's jump into the latest trends, tips, and updates in the ever-evolving world of regulatory compliance.
In the world of financial services, trust is everything. But what happens when your client can't speak for themselves, or worse, becomes a target for fraud? That's where the trusted contact comes in. It's a simple yet powerful concept that could protect your client, your firm, and your reputation. So today we're breaking down what a trusted contact is, why FINRA is pushing it, and how to make it a normal and comfortable part of every client conversation. Welcome to another episode of the Compliance.Network podcast, where we help financial firms stay ahead of regulation and build trust through compliance. I am your co-host for the day, joined by two of the best in the business. We got Kevin Rowe and Shane Jordan in the house. Gentlemen, good to see you as always.
You as well, Jeremy.
Yes.
Good to be here.
Yes. So, for those who aren't familiar, how would you explain a trusted contact in plain language?
Plain language, trusted contact is someone you as maybe as a client or as an investor authorizes for your broker or broker dealer, your registered rep, to contact in the event there are red flags of potential abuses, such as elder abuse, fraud targeting, or even in the case of diminished capacity. So those are the three items that are typically coming into play when a trusted contact is added. So sometimes someone will say, well, why do I need to add someone else to my account? I have an authorized trader or an investment advisor on my account already, and they know everything about me. And well, sometimes investors, because they're people, our judgment sometimes becomes a little cloudy, or if our capacities start to diminish, it's hard for us to really understand that. And so that's where a trusted contact would come into play.
So kind of like an added layer, right? Almost like an outside perspective. Because like you said, you're a human, you can get caught up and you could have your judgment could be a little skewed because you're in it, right? So a trusted contact would be an outside third party that really is an objective voice that could look over everything and provide feedback and ultimately deal with those issues. Yes, am I understanding that correctly?
Yes, and it's like the old adage where they say, "Oh, you can't see the forest from the tree," right? Like, so because you're so locked in and in tune with what's going on, you may not realize that you've lost a step, or that someone is taking advantage of your account, or, there's a lot of different cases out there. There's different publications for where this stuff is covered. But a lot of it's found in the FINRA disciplinary actions and hearings where, someone's grandson may have called in and, hey, grandma needs to get money, but this wasn't her trusted contact, or they make requests. A real popular one. One that I've experienced in my regulatory background, as well as having been a compliance officer, is the romance fraud is a big part of trusted contact as well. Sometimes love will make you do crazy things. And so sometimes love will have you, signing out checks or issuing money in patterns that you typically wouldn't. So from the firm side, those are the types of red flags. If you start to see maybe money movements or money activity or just investment activity that maybe doesn't fit what this customer's investment profile or risk tolerance is.
Right. And just to piggyback on that, it's just some of the times these people have relationships with their investment advisors for a long period of time. So they're used to the way they talk, they act, the way they write emails, or even in the older side, they write a letter like, I want this. But if their tone or something has changed, the investment advisor has due diligence to say, I need to ask someone else if Shane is in his right mind at this point in time, or did something. That's literally what it is.
Yeah.
So if something hey, I've been working with Shane for 20 years, and all of a sudden his emails don't sound right. His requests don't sound right. The frequency of what we're doing is not in pattern what I knew Shane to do. Then that's where this rule or this guidance came into play, because obviously the population, a majority of the population, is getting older and older, and at some point, you might have a person who lives by themselves or has no family members, but their financial advisor might be the only person they really talk to on a regular basis. So the point of that would be, it's their pattern of communicating with the firm has changed. It's upon the firm to try to look upon where, how do we contact someone that we know to say, is Shane okay? And that's where that comes into play here.
Yeah, man. Checks and balances, which is so incredibly important for the industry that you're in. There needs to be layers of security, right? Because you're dealing with so much risk and so much potential for fraud with what you do. Very, very interesting stuff. So how does a trusted contact differ from something like things that people may have probably have heard of more frequently, like a power of attorney or a beneficiary?
Okay, so I guess I can tackle part of that, Shane. With the beneficiary, that's obviously a beneficiary. So that's after we've died, possibly, or become incapacitated. So your account's going to pay out. So that's the inheritance, or if we call it in the more technical term, bequeathing of your assets or your account, right? So in that process, you're a beneficiary. You have zero say on that account. No authorization to place trades, request funds while the account owner is still alive. The beneficiary is listed and to be contacted only when there's something known about the account holder having just become deceased. So in that context, the beneficiary receives money after someone passes and they have no authority on the account, and would not be someone that the rule, which is FINRA Rule 4512, would indicate as a trusted contact. So like this person in trusted contact is the only person that would be contacted if there's a concern about abuse, fraud, or diminished capacity. You can't contact the beneficiary because they're the beneficiary. So there's inherent conflicts of interest there. Like, oh no, Kevin's insane. Like, he's got to go. You got to give him this. You got to give me the money now. Like you can see how that could create a conundrum. In the same light, I think you mentioned what was the other person, Jeremy? Authorized trader.
For a power of attorney?
Yeah, power of attorney. Okay, sure. So we call it a power of attorney, or in the kind of the jargon of the industry, an authorized trader. It's a limited power of attorney, so they typically have the ability to make transactions on your account, but they do not have the ability to withdraw funds from your account. Even in this case, your authorized trader is not or cannot be used as the trusted contact on the account unless the client designates that person to be that. So if you end up with an account and you think something's wrong with my capacity, or it seems I may be subject to romance fraud or elder abuse, I have no one to call. The broker has no one to call. They can't call anyone else. So typically, if that's the case, then they would need to document their concerns and report it to their immediate supervisor. And then that supervisor follow the paths to reporting to compliance or the designated principal in the firm for that area.
So there's so many moving parts with what you do. It's just why it's so important to have people like yourself, experts in this field, on your side when dealing with this stuff, because you could really get into the weeds and it can get confusing. And it's great.
This stuff trips you up. It definitely really trips you up. I mean,
I'm like trying to process everything. I'm like, man, if I was in this industry, I'd really need help from you guys for sure. I'm curious though, like, obviously every client is different. Every case is different. Is there ever a scenario where you would need more than one trusted contact? Is that a thing, or is it just one contact?
It's one contact. Yeah. Okay. This is the trusted source. And so I think you mentioned it earlier, is about having the conversation. So I guess we'll kind of use this to segue into that a little bit, where, in terms of documenting your effort, right? So this is even myself and quote experts, this is part of the reason why we're doing this podcast today on this topic, is because I actually learned something new. And I know that can strike everyone as like how, but yeah, definitely learning something new here. So the big thing about the trusted contact rule is the effort. And FINRA makes it very clear, after doing a little research here, that you must make an effort to obtain the trusted contact, because it is such a limited role on an account, and it can't just be delegated to anyone else on the account, or those powers, if you will, to contact someone about someone's activities or abilities. No one else can do it. So FINRA says that you must make a reasonable effort. And so this is where you get tripped up at. Okay, you get tripped up in what the definition of a reasonable effort is. And the reasonable effort is asking the customer for the information, describing the purpose of the trusted contact, for example, protection from fraud and abuses, and then also whether or not the client, documenting whether the client declined to provide a trusted contact. So this is where I learned something new. Providing the information on your application, and if the client chooses to skip over that, FINRA does not consider that a reasonable effort.
That makes sense. If I understand correctly, FINRA has taken a stronger emphasis on this idea of a trusted contact in recent years. Is that right?
It's always been there. And from my experience, it's never come up in a FINRA examination. But this is a low-hanging fruit. So I would caution those that are either reps or even investors, be sure to walk through this process, because one, it's for your protection as an investor, and then also the protection of the rep as well, to document this in the event something happens in the future. Obviously, in the present, we can't imagine what could happen in the future, but I'm sure the people that were at this age at life at some point, maybe 20 years ago, are now looking 20 years back saying, oh, wow, I never thought it would have been this way, or that would have happened. So it's one of those cautionary tales, and definitely an area of emphasis for our compliance network team to get this rolled out to our clients. Because we just want to make sure that everyone's clear on what the rules are. And there's going to be some, I'm sure, pushback, right? Because we work internationally. And so international perspective on elder abuse, or how elders are viewed in other cultures, is completely different than here in the US.
Very true.
And so this is a very challenging topic for those that maybe have the core of their client base outside of the United States and Latin America, for example.
So I want to ask, you mentioned elder fraud three times now.
Yes.
Assuming, I don't like to assume, but I'm assuming this is a huge issue. So how big of an issue is elder fraud or diminished capacity in today's financial landscape?
Elder abuse is really, really.
I can only imagine, right? You have a whole bunch of different things going on here. You have an elder generation that is not proficient in technology, so they're ripe for abuse. And then you have the idea of, as you get older, your capacity for understanding and processing information diminishes, obviously. So it's like a perfect storm. That's got to be like the most low-hanging fruit for people out there trying to take advantage, I would think.
Right. I mean, think about it, just not even specific to the financial industry where we are, but it just, like you said, your father still has a flip phone or something like that, and he gets a text from someone he doesn't know. Oh, I need to call this person back. So if you don't know that number, you don't need to contact that person. So unfortunately, elder scams are across the globe. I mean, they've been going on for decades at this point. But I think that's why FINRA has been coming up with this, to at least try to, in good guidance, to say, if you're a single person, you need to have someone on your account, because not many people have a single investment account. you're a single bank account, right?
Mm-hmm.
If something happens, even at your local Bank of America or Wells Fargo, if you're a single person, they will ask you, do you have a, like a transfer on death or something like that in place? Because once things get stuck in a single person's account and then unfortunately that individual passes away, then that creates a whole other, bunch of hurdles for the family and probate and all of that kind of information will come into play. So I think what FINRA is trying to do, like Kevin was saying, is they realize that the generation is getting older and older and older. So unfortunately, things happen when you get older. So let's have someone in place that we can contact to say, I think their pattern of behavior is not normal compared to what I've known in the past.
Yeah, just to that point, in terms of just fraud on elders in general, outside of the financial services industry, I would say that even more so, and it goes to what both of you guys said, the tech savviness, right? Like, so I have friends and peers who had elder parents, and he would walk in and he'd like, Dad, who are you on the computer with? He's like, oh, the guy said he needed to fix my computer, so I gave him access, right? So here's someone using a mouse and taking over the machine and scrolling through and flipping through whatever information. And what if it was the brokerage account, right? So there's a lot of different scenarios. I would say that we're based in South Florida. Florida in itself, there's a lot of fraud. It's a high zone, and determined by the FBI as a high zone for fraud. So you have to remain diligent, and you also have to look out for your elders. And so I think that's where we kind of get the cultural differences that I was mentioning earlier, where some of the things that are happening here just maybe are unfathomable in other cultures.
So maybe I missed this earlier, so forgive me if I'm asking again, but in terms of having a trusted contact, is this something that typically nowadays you're bringing them into the equation early on in the process, or are you waiting for potential red flags that come up to then bring somebody in?
Ideally, you want to have that name on file before
From the onset,
the red flag comes on, because at that point,
yeah,
you're getting into a strange gray area. So that's why most of these clearing firms have that portion on their application when you're initially, setting up your account at the firm.
But that isn't the only time. So if you didn't have an opportunity to have the conversation as a registered representative now, because we're talking from a broker-dealer compliance perspective, if you haven't, made the concerted effort, then, there's always a good time before the wrong time to add a trusted contact. The wrong time would typically be when you need it. Any time before that is a valiant effort, and making the notes of why, or perhaps it wasn't. Again, the cultural differences is huge, so it's got to be sensitive. And so, obviously you want to know your client base, know your client, and know how to broach this topic with them.
Got it. What about some real world examples where having a trusted contact made a difference, and maybe in the past where there was the absence of one that caused problems? Can you speak to that?
I'll give you one where it's the certain ones, because we're in Florida. So you're going to get elder abuse. You're going to get financial, romance crimes. So, the younger guy, younger lady with an older partner, and, love is great. It's blind. And, all of a sudden now that you're getting access to their account and you're moving money, and you're telling them that you have all of these things, that is a crime, to tell someone or to give them a sob story of something that turns out not to be true. I think we've all seen that outside of the financial services industry with, oh my gosh, GoFundMe. There's always been the story of the hero, and then it turns out that, that probably wasn't a hero, that was a story. And so then you hear about people requesting to get their funds back from GoFundMe. So even that happens on an individual level inside of relationships. So that's one that I've seen or heard a lot of. And then also with the elders, just, you won something, or you got to pay this money up front, or do you have any accounts, or even the example of the accounts being, or the computers being taken over?
I've actually seen one in person where the office I was in and working for at this time, this is previous to the compliance network, where every office had glass doors and windows, and an elderly client came in to meet their financial advisor, who she knew for years and years, but another person escorted her into the office and out of the office. But as the questions were being asked to the elderly client, the person who had no ability or tie to the account was actually tapping her feet under the table, and they had some kind of code as far as how to answer the question. So luckily in that situation, the person who reviewed that, which was another financial advisor, contacted their supervisor, who then contacted the compliance department and say, we think there's a situation here. And then afterwards, they talked to the financial advisor who was facing the client and that individual and said, yeah, this was not a normal conversation for us. So it can be that brazen, where someone feels confident enough to create a plan and go face to face with an elderly person. So I think that I knew I was shocked by that. And to this day, it's quite unbelievable.
Yeah, really good organization to follow this type of, if you're in the state of Florida where we're recording out of, and there may be one also in different states as well. But here we have the Florida Security Dealers Association, which we've been proud members of for the last 11 years. And, they make it an objective and a goal to fight on these subjects of elder abuse and financial fraud crimes. And they work with our state government to get legislation passed. They've had a lot of success recently with getting items passed. This is the one area of financial services where you can actually deny sending a client money. If the firm suspects that there is some type of elder abuse, diminished capacity, or romance fraud crime, they can instruct their team not to release the funds to the wire instructions until they obtain further clarification. In most other instances, you can document, you can report. There's processes and structures in place for that, but there's never been an instance where you could stop money from leaving in a client's account, and this is it.
Yeah. No, seems important. Makes sense to me. How do you guys recommend to advisors how to bring this up to clients in a way that doesn't feel intrusive?
Yeah, that it's got to be relational based. And I think that there's certain, items that you can kind of just have the conversation or frame the conversation around, the conversation would probably start in the area of like, hey, we're working with your money and this is important. And so, there's going to be times when we got to make sure everything makes sense and that, our history and what we've learned about each other, if something comes up, how do I make sure that that's really you? Or how do I make sure that if I have a concern, who can I speak with? It's important to make sure that your client understands that the trusted contact will only be contacted in certain scenarios. They'll never be contacted or provided balance information, transaction information on your holdings. None of that information is privy to the trusted contact. The trusted contact is simply to say, hey, this is someone that I speak to frequently. This is someone who knows me. This is someone that I would talk about maybe my medical history with. So it's a very touchy point for the advisor. But I believe that the best way that anyone can handle a situation with this is to talk about how it benefits the client, even though it may not seem like it's ever going to be needed.
Yeah, I wouldn't think there would be any resistance to that, but are there scenarios where clients just don't want to get a trusted advisor involved? And if so, how does an advisor handle that? Because again, I wouldn't see that being an issue, but is it?
Well, according to FINRA, you got to make a note that the client didn't want the trusted contact, and I think that presents a challenge in this area for not only the client but also the advisors and the advisory firms. In this particular case, you would have possibly.
Yeah, I was talking about like resistance from clients. So it's like I wouldn't think that would be a thing. Like from where I sit, when it comes to matters like this, like you said, this is relationship driven. I want to be working with an advisor that I don't have to question necessarily, right? Like when they give me advice on their area of expertise and they tell me like, hey, we need to bring this person in because it's, I want to, yeah, of course we do. Right. Like I don't want, if you're questioning that and you don't trust the advisor, maybe you're working with the wrong advisor, right?
Well, I don't know that. Maybe you trust your advisor too much, right? Okay. That could be a opposite. And then also,
fine line.
And then also I would say, again, it's based on the culture. It's not uncommon for some Latin countries to have an account where it's the primary account holder who may be the father, husband on the account, and then he's got his wife and 6 other dependents on the account, children. So in that case, it's sort of like, well, my trusted contacts are on this account with me. What more could there be, right? However, even in that case, it could be pointed like, well, relationships change, and so we want to make sure that you have a trusted contact. So I guess to sum it up, the best way that you could do it, it's like an emergency contact for your money.
Yeah.
So if like comparison, anyone with kids in daycare or any sports, you have the emergency contact as the parent, but then just in case the parent isn't available, is there another emergency contact, aunt, uncle, cousin, aunt, niece,
I like that.
nephew?
I like that. I like that analogy. And I could see how, as an advisor, if you have this conversation in a great manner with good communication, it could really help to strengthen the relationship and the trust between the advisor and the client. It's almost like, hey, I got your best interest at heart, but obviously other factors come up and we're going to bring another party in, an objective party, an added level of security to make sure that we're always doing everything in our best interest. And I could see how that
just in this case, if there's only in the event, it's very isolated. I just want to make sure that the audience clears, only isolated to the instances of elder abuse, fraud targeting, and then diminished capacity. One thing to clear up as well, and I find it a little bit confusing, so we're still looking into some clarification on this topic, but it also is something that is typically that would be added to accounts of anyone under 18 and 65 and older. And as a part of the research for this podcast, one of the things that came up was just the consideration that if you're under 18, then that account has to be a custodial account.
Sure.
So, but even then it asks for a trusted contact. So those are the types of nuances and challenges that are facing not only investors, but also the firms that provide them with the access to investments.
But real quick, back to your initial question right there, Jeremy, is someone could see that as well. If someone's been working with an advisor for several years and all of a sudden that individual shuts down and says, I don't need to tell you that information. I don't need to tell you. So that could be a red flag for a couple of different things as well, where the temperament of the client has changed, maybe because of a bad relationship as far as with the advisor, but it could also be maybe the individual's getting instructions from someone behind the scenes. But that's the point of the advisor to say, hey, met with this individual on this day and document how the temperament has changed, because who knows what that could lead to in the future. But as long as the individual or the firm documents that change in temperament, that will go a long way in the future in case something does happen in the future. Because people know people. They talk, like Kevin's saying, medical history. You're very intimate with your conversations, and all of a sudden you see a 180, that should draw attention to you as far as, hey, Shane's not answering, or we're not having the conversation, the flow that we normally have. So that's what documentation is going to help the advisor and help the firm and then they can notify compliance as well.
Got it. So how can firms make this process easier and more consistent across their teams for those larger organizations?
Start over.
Start
so
over?
You say it. Yeah, you got to start over, right? Like, because one of the big things is that, you know, not necessarily starting over, but you want to start at the beginning, right? So you want to look at your kind of, if there are any sales scripts or any customer onboarding scripts or any onboarding client paperwork or checklist, you want to start there. Because if this isn't showing up there, then it's not going to show up in the conversation with the client. Got to check the box.
Check all the boxes, tick them off.
Yeah, definitely.
Anything else that I missed that you'd like to add before we wrap this up? Not everybody all at once.
Well, I don't have anything else. I think this was a very good topic for our team to review, as well as sharing what we've learned with you all.
Perfect. All right, then I guess we will leave it at that. Everyone out there, thanks for tuning in. If you found this content useful, don't forget to like, subscribe, follow, leave us some comments. Let us know if you've ever encountered any issues with a trusted contact. Let us know about it in the comments. We're always interested to hear your feedback. Thanks again, everyone, for joining us, and we look forward to catching you next time. Everyone, take care. Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.
Thank you for tuning in to the Compliance Network podcast. We hope you found today's episode valuable. Until next time, you may find our community on social media at compliance.network. We are on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook for more insights and observations.